Mayor Gregory, we're ready when you are.
All right, I'll go ahead and call the study session for the Cathedral City Council. It does sound different in here, doesn't it, with these new microphones? All right, I'll go ahead and call it to order for the Wednesday, January 28th, 2026, and ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Gordon,
Here.
Councilmember Ross,
Here.
Councilmember Lamb,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gutierrez, Mayor Gregory.
Here. The next item on our agenda is agenda finalization. Are there any changes to today's agenda?
There are no changes, Mayor.
All right, seeing none, then I'll go ahead and move to the next section. The next section is public comments. This is public comments on non-agenda items. This is the opportunity for the public to come and make comments on items that are not on our agenda. We will limit those comments to 3 minutes, and remember, items that aren't on our agenda we're not able to speak about or answer about. We can, of course, get some clarification from staff if necessary. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items?
Mayor, we do have one request to speak, Mr. Robert McCormick.
Welcome, Mr. McCormick.
Good afternoon, Mayor Gregory, City Council. Welcome, new member, Councilmember Gordon. We need more politicians in this entire nation to run for office. I thank you for your service. My name is Robert McCormick. I am a decorated United States Marine Corps veteran. When was the last time a police officer or firefighter blew the whistle on one or the other for wrongdoing? What I am proposing and what I demand is a policy of speaking up, sounding off, and whistleblowing from the police department and the firefighters, and doing away with the unofficial policy of the Blue Code of Silence. For 600 years, it has been the implementation of the Blue Code of Silence, and that is the reason why the corruption, the harassment, the intimidation, the bullying continues for 600 years against the homeless and the downtrodden. The policy needs to extend the jurisdiction to NGOs, nonprofits, small business, corporations, and the upper demographic of society. This continued policy of bullying, intimidating, harassing the homeless and the downtrodden has got to stop. It is an unofficial policy of the Blue Code of Silence. The Fraternal Order of Police, ombudsman, internal affairs, police chiefs, police departments have all supported this unofficial policy of the Blue Code of Silence. And it needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. In the near future, I will be generating a letter. In the interim of that, I am asking that a petition be put outside the police station so that anybody who supports this can sign it, that there be a weekly performance letter saying what exactly is going on in terms of this new policy. My constitutional rights says anytime that there is a politician and a government agency, a government policy, whatever, is incorrect, not following the Constitution of the United States, can be changed and demanded by a citizen of the United States. That is what I am doing here. Changing the policy of the Blue Code of Silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Any other public comments?
I do not have any other requests to speak forms. If you're a member of the public and you wish to comment on items not on the agenda, please raise your hand. I see none, Mayor.
All right, we'll go ahead and close public comments and move on with our study session. The first item on our study session agenda, item 2A, is the Cathedral City Community Center Feasibility Study Update by Group 4 Architecture. City Manager, would you like to give us an introduction?
Yes, Mayor. Good evening, and good evening, council members. So Staff were before you back in October, providing you an update on the work that Group 4 has been doing to study various sites in the community as potential sites for a future recreation center. This has been looking at both city-owned property, publicly or privately held property, and also renovation of existing commercial sites. When we met with council in October, there were 2 additional sites that council asked us to add, one being the Northgate Church property, the other being Dennis Keats Park. And Group 4 has, and staff have studied those sites, and we'll be able to report back to you on the status of those as well. What our hope coming out of tonight is, with the additional information, is trying to get some consensus on narrowing down the list of potential sites that just don't seem to be feasible or workable, so that when we come back in February to, with our sort of final report, that we can try to narrow down and maybe provide any additional information that is requested of the council tonight to hopefully narrow us down to ultimately one site that we would like to identify as the site that we will develop in the future for a recreation center. So this evening, Don Merks from Group 4 Architecture, Research and Planning. Don is a principal with that firm and has been our project manager working with our team and our community. So she is going to go through a presentation. We will have Victor at the side, so if there are specific questions or ideas that you have about any of the specific sites, we're going to make sure we try to capture that so that when we come back to you, we can answer any additional questions that you might have.
Thank you. Welcome, Dawn.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. Pleasure to be here. Let's see if I can get our page down here. There we go. As Ann summarized, what we're looking for today is additional information, input, and direction on the program and the proposed sites for the Community Recreation Center. And we also have for you new information on operational cost and would like to come back to you next time with additional refined information on capital cost, depending on which site is directed to us that you would like further information on. Just going over the agenda, it's really summarizing all the work we've been doing for the last 6 to 7 months. We've got the schedule and work plan, summarizing the project engagement, looking at a proposed building and site program, looking at the site options, and then looking at the site and program strategies together, as well as the financial information for both operational and capital cost, and then hopefully a good discussion and evaluation of the sites. The work plan to date includes the assessments, both the site assessments as well as the needs assessment, 2 rounds of community engagement, and I'll get a little bit of detail on that in just a minute, looking at funding strategies, as well as recommendations and feasibility, all concurrent with ongoing project management tasks. Very robust on the project participation. A big thank you to the staff, the stakeholders, and all the community members who have really participated and helped guide this project so far. As you can see, lots of project management team meetings. I'll summarize the stakeholders and the focus group meetings on subsequent slides. Community outreach, 2 rounds of community outreach. Over 1,900 people participated. That's very exciting. And then the technical meetings with the district recreation district staff, planning department, senior center, library, as well as public works. We are looking at having a couple more technical meetings when we get to the selected sites that we want to refine, and that'll be with public safety. Just looking at the site in terms of access and egress. And then, as Ann mentioned, coming back to you in February with the additional information to make the final recommendation. Community engagement, those 2 rounds have included online surveys, self-service kiosks, going to special events in the community, going to 2 middle schools, going to mercados, going to the movies in the park, Spooktacular, and Taste and Sounds of Cathedral City. As I mentioned, over 1,900 participants in the rounds that we reached out to the community. And what we heard from the community is they want it to be accessible and inclusive, really to be that third place where they can go, they can socialize, meet their community, do activities and programs. They want it multi-generational and making that social connection. Youth and teen-focused spaces, indoor recreation, fitness and sports, arts, culture and performance, education, skills and workforce, events and rental, and really covering the basic needs. Is there anything they don't want? No, I think they definitely would like it all. As we looked at the priorities for community activities in community spaces, these are color-coded by age grouping. So the adults are in the lighter orange, the darker orange are non-resident adults, and then we have teen in the light green and youth in the blue. And looking at the community activities, it's clear to see what the youth and the teens' preferred activities are, from gaming, and surprisingly, culinary arts is right up there, exercise and sports courts, and crafts and do-it-yourself. As you look towards the orange color, you can see also culinary arts is up there, but fitness and cardio, crafts and do-it-yourself, exercise and yoga. The community spaces for the youth and teen, the gymnasium was of high priority. The teen zone technology lab. As we look at the adult orange color, you can see fitness and dance, arts and crafts, community hall with the kitchen, and gymnasium is close up there as well. So really interesting way of looking at it, and you can see the nice overlapping for their priorities in these. Interior design values, we asked for input on design values in the second round of engagement, and very complementary for the preferred ones, which is playful and creative, desert-inspired, and nature-focused. And all of these three really can work nicely together in the new Community Recreation Center. Stakeholder participants, again, as I mentioned, very robust, and many thanks to everyone who has participated. Many of these people participated in more than one meeting, which is really helpful for us. From the commissioners to the library staff, Boys and Girls Club, Senior Center, the school, tribal programs and events, performing arts, and churches, as well as the Financial Advisory Committee. The input that we got from the stakeholders very much aligned with what we heard from the community, the inclusive, multi-generational, responsive to hot climate, locally inspired landmark, joint use opportunities. And so this is something really interesting that can be further explored depending on which site option as we look at operations, looking at joint use opportunities with the library, the senior center, and other programs. Central and accessible location, flexible rental event space with the kitchen, and then programs, makerspace, childcare, art and performance, indoor recreation, fitness, and then the Resiliency Resource Center. And so a lot of our community recreation centers are providing this community resource resiliency center as we're looking at kind of the current trend in facilities. It may be increased filtering on the HVAC system. It may be additional power for emergency connectivity or charging, community information distribution, resource distribution. From all that information, we developed a space use activity matrix. And so all of the different activities and spaces are spaces listed across the top, activities, programs, services along the bottom, along the column, and then tried to come up with a program where we could check as many boxes as possible. And this is an accommodation of spaces like the gymnasium, dance and fitness studio, cardio, weight room, lobby, multi-gen lounge, cultural arts gallery, community hall, and catering kitchen, a teaching kitchen, teen lounge, gaming technology room, early childhood recreation, enrichment classrooms, arts and crafts classrooms, and additional enrichment classrooms with things like music and art studios. From that information, we develop a draft building program, and this is summarized on the right and covers a lot of those spaces I've just summarized. We have color-coded them to kind of like spaces for community center, classroom spaces, the teen center, creative arts, fitness and wellness, early childhood recreation, staff and support spaces. So really a full, comprehensive facility that meets community needs for recreation as well as socialization and programs and services. Trying to look ahead, developing phasing options. And this is all very preliminary, but understanding that the full center may not be able to happen all at one time just because of funding constraints. So looking at options for potential phasing, kind of breaking it down into current suggested phasing, but totally flexible on which goes first or not, depending on the site and the opportunity. So phase 1 is really more the community-centric spaces with the classrooms, the teen center, the creative arts spaces, the community hall. And then what we had broken out into phase 2 was more of the recreation spaces. Additional classrooms, fitness and wellness spaces, that includes the gymnasium, dance and fitness studio, cardio and weight room, and then early childhood recreation. The reason we were suggesting initially that the recreation be phase 2 is because of the larger square footage, which results in the higher cost. And so as a phase 1, the community-centric spaces preliminarily would be less cost because there's less square footage included in those as opposed to the larger recreation spaces. Additional spaces were identified as really nice to have, and those were the optional enhancements that you see in that third column, and those were a cafe. A lot of facilities of this size do include either, it can be vending machines, it can be a small cafe, a juice bar, kind of grab and go food, kind of coffee bar, as well as another gym. And so that 2,400 square feet and the optional enhancement would increase your gym to have 3 cross courts.
So
And
what's a MS main, or HS main court and a JH cross court?
So the
That's standard.
third junior high cross court. And so
So-
when we look at a gym, having the high school be your main courts and 2 cross courts junior high, this optional enhancement adds a third junior high court. And what that really does is allow for additional revenue potentially for club tournaments, rentals, because you can actually have 3 courts
So
going.
what is a high school court? Is that just a larger court?
It's just a larger court, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Good question. Sorry for the acronyms there,
All
too.
right, that's okay.
So as we go on here, the sites, as Ann mentioned, we saw you in December, I believe, with the 7 sites. So the old Walmart building, the old Burlington Coat Factory building, the site near the amphitheater, which is partially owned, Cathedral City Library site, which is city-owned, the site across from the Salvation Army, which is city-owned, the site across from City Hall, which is also city-owned, the Uptown Village site on Date Palm Drive, which is non-city owned, and then the 2 sites that we've added is the Northgate Church site, the empty piece of that parcel on Date Palm Drive, and then also looking at Dennis Keat Soccer Park. And you can see the map on the left. What we have also added, I think, based on council's good advice last time, is the additional blue area that is shown here is kind of the extents of the city at full build out here with the annex sites as well. And you can see how the city grows further to the north. The evaluation criteria that we're identifying, you can see the top 4 we're suggesting are prerequisites. that the sites be available, that they have the capacity to support either the community center portion of the program or the recreation center of the program, or both of them together, that they're zoned or could be changed zoning to allow the community center, recreation center to be built on it, and that the cost for the land purchase or lease, the site infrastructure, site entitlement costs, and building construction costs are not exorbitant, that they're within reach. Additional evaluation criteria is accessibility. Is the site easy to get to? Economic impact. Is there potential for the new community center to act as a catalyst and to promote new growth, kind of invigorating an existing neighborhood, adding to the city's economic goals? Synergy, connectivity, is it adjacent to other public facilities, schools, senior centers, other spaces that will promote that synergy of shared use, shared attention, kind of chain visiting as people are out going to grocery stores? Can they stop by the community center, the recreation center? Does it have a civic presence? And then outdoor amenities. One of the ways that you can really leverage indoor square footage of these facilities is by providing nice complementary outdoor spaces where you can expand programming on good weather days to indoors, outdoors, and actually get a lot more space for less money because of the cost of outdoor improvements compared to indoor improvements. As we're looking at the 9 sites, one of the things as we've looked at cost is kind of a big impact on the evaluation. And again, we are not suggesting any weighting of these criteria, right? There can be weighting applied to the criteria as well. But the one that really sticks out as we look across the 9 sites is that the city-owned sites, which includes Dennis Keat, does become much less costly because we don't have to pay for lease or we don't have to pay for land purchase. As we're looking at the old Walmart and the old Burlington and the land by the amphitheater, the availability we have noted is potentially challenging. They have been listed, a couple of them, and information gained on the cost of them. One of them actually at the time was in negotiations, which I think has actually dropped out.
Yes, there was a broker looking to engage the Walmart building, and they were not able to come to a deal, and mainly that was related to the price.
Yeah. As we're looking at the zoning, most all of them are able to be zoned or would be appropriate for a community recreation center. And the capacity, all of them can work. Some of them work better for a single facility if we go 2 stories, and we have additional analysis on the city-owned sites. Any questions on the site evaluation at this time? We can come back to this too afterwards.
Yes, Mayor, I have a question. All right, go ahead. Thank you very much. Just a couple of questions. So are you recommending, or would you recommend 2 locations as opposed to 1?
Good question, and I do have, maybe the next slide covers that. And so a lot of cities do split up their community centers and their recreation facilities.
But is that something you would recommend?
Not necessarily. We heard from your community, from the stakeholders specifically, that they preferred 1 location for both.
Location. And then I see one of the pieces is a church property. What are the encumbrances upon us if we were to use church property land?
You know, I might let Ann answer that question.
At some point, are we going to talk more about specific sites, or do you want to get into that now?
We can take it any way that you'd like. If you'd like us to kind of walk through each individual site, we can do that.
What I'm asking, is that part of the presentation coming up?
We have,
You're coming to the end of your presentation.
for the key city sites, we do go into those sites in more detail. being that they checked off more of the boxes. So we do have, and that these are the sites that we have most control over. We do have further analysis and sort of site options for the council to review. I think it's been difficult for looking at things like the Walmart or the old Burlington building just because of the likelihood or the uncertainty of whether we could access those sites. We have not gone further in developing what those sort of building
So it
plan
sounds
options
like
could
this
be.
is a good time to go over the non-city-owned sites, because you're going to get into the city-owned sites. So can you just, and you started already, touched briefly
Yeah.
on the non-city-owned sites and talk about a little bit about the challenges or what the discussion was?
Yes, I can. And so as we kind of focusing on the prerequisites, grouping the old Walmart and the old Burlington sites together for availability. And so square footage wise and site wise, you know, they're quite large and they have parking lots. They're kind of your typical box store configuration. And so just the size of the capacity of what the city might be able to afford as a first phase based on your measured W dollars, you know, that's kind of potentially challenging as we look at those sites. When we were looking at the one site, it was potentially just taking a portion of it initially. And renting that out or leasing that out. And that just becomes challenging, right? Because you don't have control of your destiny on those sites if you go into a lease like that. And we don't typically see that for public facilities. And so those two sites, you can see we did put potentially challenging. And the cost, I do have that same financial capital cost projection slide further on. And when you look at adding the land cost for lease or purchase to your capital cost, it becomes quite high. And it makes that extra dollar sign that you see on the non-city owned sites. The site by the amphitheater, you do own part of that land, but initial very preliminary, I understand, discussions with the landowner who owns the land between your property have not seemed feasible. And so again, the capacity of just the city-owned site is not enough, and you can see the challenging color there. And then the dollar signs kind of reflect that additional cost to purchase the land. Where we go to the village, Uptown Village site and the site by Northgate. The site by Northgate, the availability, again, I don't think they were interested in selling the site, and so it would be building a city facility on a privately owned piece of parcel, and again, may not have control of your destiny. And your public facilities typically do last 50 to 60 years, right? I mean, they may need lots of repairs during that time, but most of the public facilities we see are on city-owned sites, and a lot of our facilities we work on are at least 50 to 60 years old, easily. And so those are the concerns with the Uptown Village site, and the cost is the Uptown Village site, the site, to purchase that. Dennis Key is a city-owned site, number 9, and we've developed additional detailed site analysis for all of these sites. Thought this presentation would be too long if we added those. Dennis Key is a great location by the middle school. If the recreation component was there, that adjacency typically is really great with recreation gyms, programs for kids after school. The concern there is, as further investigation was done, it was built with a grant, and the funding that built your soccer fields came from a grant, and there are conditions on that. And so that potentially could add additional cost if you were to take our analysis for the recreation component only on that site, it would impact 2 of your 12 fields.
Additionally, if we lost that outdoor space to the indoor facility, it would be a similar situation where we would potentially have to buy land somewhere else to make up the difference if that was allowable. But, excuse me. we would have to explore further into the grant requirements to see if that's even a possibility for that site.
Council, do you have questions on those 6 sites that are not city-owned, or technically the Dennis Keat is, but you would have to replace, is what I'm hearing, you would have to replace anything you used with some other property or another park somewhere else? So potentially, then you'd have to buy another park to be able to use that park. So are there any questions on those? Or
We did with Esperanza, something like that. I think we had to buy something.
No, we didn't do it with Esperanza, but we
Did
have.
we do a trade?
No, no, we have another one pending right now.
No, I'm pretty clear on that.
All right, so are we ready to move on with
I am.
the 3 that have the stars on them on your site evaluation that say city-owned?
Yes, I am.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. And so as we're looking at the city-owned sites, as Councilmember Ross just indicated, one option for council to consider is to build potentially, even in phase 1, to build a community center or a recreation center. And then when additional funding is in place, you could look at an expansion at that center or another location for the component that you did not build initially. And so we did do analysis of the sites for a community center at 20 to 25,000 square feet, as well as the recreation component at 25 to 30,000 square feet. And then we did the analysis of these 4 sites, which one could accommodate both of them easily and is in a good location to support them. And so you can see with the library, just starting on that one, it's a number 4. It is a nice central location. We can accommodate both the community center and the recreation center on that site, and having those co-located. It's a great location by the high school, reasonably central to the community. There are challenges with parking, which we'll address as we get into the site analysis. The Salvation Army site, for the community center, it's kind of less visible, and so typically for community centers, they're not quite as destination as recreation centers. And so if you're going to the gym with your kids, you've got a class program there, it's not necessarily quite a drop-in as a community center is. It's kind of more program activity oriented. And so being a little bit more embedded in the community is not necessarily as negative. So we did put a community center at that site. More challenging, the recreation center, potentially challenging, but just in the medium color. And then the community recreation center together there was not seen as positive. The site by the senior center, we rated positive for the community center and less positive for the recreation component, just because of its less central location. And then as same for the co-located. And then Dennis Keat, we saw, as I mentioned, potential good synergy with the recreation center there, and less positive when the community center component was added there. So looking at site capacity studies, we've got these for the city-owned site, and we do have it for Dennis Keats, but it's not included in this presentation, but I am familiar with it and I can explain it to you. So looking at a phase...
That's okay, I think we just
We
wanted
just
to go
moved
with just
on?
with the 3.
Okay,
Yes.
So currently, there's 95 parking spaces that are associated with the library, and working and talking with the library, they feel like they do have excess space that could be reallocated to the community center. And so that would be the renovation portion of this option.
May I just ask you a question right now?
Yeah.
So those 95 spaces are often fully taken when Big League Dreams is having any kind of an event. They take all the parking lot and the streets, on the 2 sides, because it's such a big facility.
Yes, they do at those peak use times. My understanding, I could be wrong, they do have a security guard there, and I've been there when Big League Dreams was going to have an event, and they did have a security guard kind of checking everyone and making sure the library spaces were being used for the library only.
So nobody from Big Leagues could use the library that day, the library parking?
I think they try to control it as best as they can. I think it is a challenge right now for the library on the days that Big League Dreams is operating. But I think as Don was saying, that on off baseball days or softball days, that there is more capacity than necessary for the library itself.
Is there any contractual agreement with Big League Dreams that they would be able to use some of those parking spaces?
Kevin is going yes, so,
Yes, there is. So we have obligated. that
and
they
it
can
would be
use
part
this,
of their lease agreement that they have access to that parking.
which then cuts 95 spaces out.
But that's sort of current situations, and what Don will go through kind of in this slide and the next slide is how we've tried to look at other opportunities to expand that, not only to address the capacity of the community center and our recreation center, but also to help address those peak times, which are
And I'm not
currently
trying to be
unmet
Debbie
needs.
Downer either.
You're
you
not,
know,
no,
I
it's-
just want to be eyes
a
wide
huge-
It's the
open.
main
concern,
challenge of
yeah.
this site that we've really been trying to wrestle with. What are the options to be able to add the additional capacity, but also not take up all the green space that's currently around the facilities?
Right.
And I think Dawn and her team and staff have come up with some, I think, interesting opportunities to explore. So I'll turn back to Dawn.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to echo Councilmember Ross, because the parking is a concern. And when you look at the space, it's it checks all the boxes. It's a central location, it's wonderful, it's there, it's city-owned, lots of stuff's wonderful about it. But for instance, over the last 6 years, we've been having emergency preparedness events there. So that turns, there's always some crisis at the last minute that there's not enough parking, and people that need wheelchair access, it's there, but sometimes the car is blocking it, and, on and on. So I'm very interested to hear how it's mitigated. When I was reviewing this, I thought, I need somebody somebody HGTV to walk me through it and say, here's your little closet, and then 30 minutes into the show,
3 dimensions,
there's this fabulous place. So I need to see that, so thank you.
Need to see the
Yeah.
reconfiguration.
Right.
Yeah, and so this is looking at full build out, this slide here at the site. And one of the interesting things we found with staff's help is that initially Big League Dreams had identified all of this space up here, which is kind of beyond the outfield of these 2 fields kind of on the north side, as additional parking. And so just within this space, and there are no trees there, it's very clear. I was walking the site and I'm like, there's no backflow preventers, no transformers. It's just like, okay. And then I think Kevin helped us find the drawing from the original initial proposal for the site, or it was planning department maybe, that actually showed this as potential parking. And so there is another 125 to 150 spaces that can easily be fit along Dave Kelly Road right here before you get to the high school here. And so next time you're out there,
What's in that space now?
nothing.
Grass.
Remember, we park there when we go to Big League. That's kind of where we park.
Wait,
Actually,
that usually
no,
moves aside. Where is
no.
there's like tented structure somewhere in there. Where
The
is,
tented structure is down underneath our table here. So this is Dave Kelly Road, the school tennis courts are right over here, and that kind of double access road, one for Big League Dreams and one for the school, which is a little redundant maybe too. Maybe additional parking. If you were, we have actually worked on sites where we've combined access roads. But so yeah, there is, it could be used as grass parking. Is that what I'm hearing during, you park there during?
No, that's not where we park. They take us down an access road and,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right.
The tented, the tent that has, kind of is used for the larger scale events is kind of right in the middle of the planning and building, or planned building square footage column. It's kind of right in the middle there.
Okay, well, yeah,
Here's this.
the mayor pro tem showed me a map on his phone that shows the whole thing.
All right.
Yeah, these fields, I'm not sure
It's that.
even what they're used for now, because usually we see the other fields that are lower, below where the tented structure is and
Yeah.
the
Correct.
Yeah. And we did,
yes.
We did talk to the planning department as well, potentially looking at ways to get additional street parking. You know, the high school next door, typically on weekends, when you're going to have big events here, will have additional parking space. And if you can come up with managed parking for shared use with the high school, that may be an additional opportunity, which you're probably already doing now at peak use times, I imagine.
No, we're not.
Good hike.
They're not.
Because I think we depend on Big League Dreams to come up with parking, and they just
Right.
don't do it.
Yeah.
And then without being ignorant, I just don't know this answer. You're talking about 125 to 150 spaces there.
Yes.
At full capacity, how much does Big League Dreams use?
So if we look at the ITE and we look at kind
What
of
ITE
the
mean,
code, traffic engineers, parking ratios, which is appropriate. We talked to planning if that's appropriate for us to use because your parking codes haven't been updated recently. You can see the number of spaces needed here, the second to the right, the last column there. It's just 330 to 380. And then, you know, we've been able to exceed that with proposed shared parking to 337 to 387. Your current parking is 280, and we were looking at adding 125 to 150.
Not that 125 to 150, or is that what you're talking about?
That's what we're talking about is potential addition for parking. But we are taking some parking away because where we're putting the new recreation center, that's actually in parking. And so our analysis is saying that, you know, on paper, which is not going to be your peak use weekends, right? We can meet what would code require for parking and exceed that. The managed parking, working with the high school, who has a lot of parking already, you know, is really best practice for those peak use events.
How far is that from that driveway?
Not
over
very
to what
far.
would be the library? Half a mile? Quarter mile?
I would say less than a half mile, maybe a quarter mile.
That's a bit of a hike for an elderly community.
It is, and that's why you always make sure you have the handicap and accessible spaces right up front. And for the big events, you can even expand that with temporary signage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes in those cases too, that there's opportunity or even with a drop-off zone so that parents can unload their trolleys with all the baseball gear in that. And then if somebody has to park the car and walk back, that
And if it's really bad, you can always golf cart shuttle people back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would this look like during construction, parking during construction, and in the interim while we're acquiring or getting
you own
the
the
extra
land.
parking?
So it just really depends. So if you're able to, if you go ahead with the community center, the expansion to the library and the renovation of the library's square footage, that would have little or minimal impact on your parking. The contractor would need a laydown area, and we would have to designate some area for him to work. But compared to like that first phase, it would be minimal. And then potentially what you would want to do in the second phase is make sure you add that parking before you do the recreation center, the gymnasium.
And my last question, which it probably won't be, but I'm just going to say that for now. It's, can you show me, just by pointing to what square it is, what part of this is Patriot Park?
So Patriot Park, my understanding is over here.
Where you have parking spaces?
So all of this green area down here is Patriot Park.
part of Patriot Park. That's
Yeah,
not
it's
extending the
not all of
full
it, yeah.
extent of the park.
No.
And so we're not counting that. There is an opportunity to relocate Patriot Park and expand parking in that direction as well. Planning was not fond of that idea because that's one of your main thoroughfares, and lining it with parking is not necessarily the most attractive thing. But that could be considered. So
I
we
don't
kind
think we're
of,
federally certified for Patriot Park, but it is our Patriot Park, and
Right.
there'd be some pushback.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that opens a whole, and that's probably more detailed discussion if we choose to look at a site. Let's say we choose to look at the site, that could be something, and it would probably not be for many years anyways.
Right.
But I think that there is some discussion that at least a little bit of that park could probably be utilized because it's a bigger park than what's really used for anything. So if you needed to take a little bit on the one end and improve the other end so that it was more usable, that you might end up with a
Nobody
better
would object to a
result.
little bit.
So, well, right. There's a bathroom building there, say, so I don't think you would want to tear down the bathroom building, but it's a ways into that, to the, I'm
They
just
also
going to
put
say
up
the
1,000
park.
flags every year,
So
so that would just be gone.
we don't put 1,000 in the bathroom?
No, in Patriot Park.
Yes, I'm aware, but what I'm saying is that there's, not every little bit of it's used every year or all the time.
No,
So-
it isn't.
So unless somebody's trying to draw a line and say, well, it's Patriot Park, so you couldn't touch a square foot of it. I mean, it would always be something that you could look, could you readjust, build the part that's better, that's improved, the part that's down by Dinah Shore so that it's better, and then you could potentially use a little bit of the part that's towards the library or where the rec center would be if you needed to.
Yeah,
That's a
I
possibility.
don't know how this
Yeah,
is
and I don't think
still.
we're there yet, but I'm saying is,
I think one of the opportunities too, if this were the chosen site, is that currently Patriot Park, with the exception of the Veterans Day flag ceremony and the flag service, there's no programming in this park. And currently, I think the park itself and the parking areas by the library are often challenged by unhoused persons that are sort of congregating there, and there's some activities that are going on in those areas that are not really desirable. And I think in part it's because we don't have programming there. And so if there was more activity where, if DRD is running a rec center, there could be outdoor activity within a prescribed place. I think it also helps mitigate some of the problematic activity that's going on in the park currently.
Very good questions.
all right, you can move on.
Thank you. So looking at the Salvation Army site, we've run kind of 3 options for you here. One is adding a 25,000 square foot community/recreation center. It's trying to be a little bit generic there, depending which council's preferences for direction. And then looking at the 27,500 square foot, 1-story option. If we do want to build one facility at this location, it will necessitate, to get the adequate parking on this site, a 2-story facility. And so we're just kind of showing the full range here, that the, a 25 to 27,000 square foot facility fits nicely with the parking, some outdoor space. As we get up to the larger community center, recreation center, it does necessitate 2 stories. And there's options probably definitely between the 27.5 and the 53,000 that we could run as well. And then looking at the site by the senior center, looking at all new construction as well at this site. You can see that we can do either the 25,000 or 27,500 single-story community recreation center. We can actually do a single-story 53,000 square foot facility on this site as well with the parking, or providing more open space, more landscaping opportunities, fit the 53,000 square feet 2-story facility as well. I will note, phasing a 2-story building is super challenging unless you're going to put the money up front to do like a cold shell on the 2nd floor, because our building codes change so regularly. What you might do in phase 1, thinking that you're going to accommodate a 2nd floor 10 years out, 15 years out, the building code will change and will require changes to what you did in the first phase. And so that's not something we recommend typically. And it does cost, even a cold shell is 60 to 70% of new construction cost. Okay, So this is kind of summarizing the 3 sites here, and you can see the library site, just because we're able to reuse a portion of the library, kind of repurpose it, reallocate that square footage, which does cost less money, is showing as $1 sign. If you're going to do the full build out, it's probably going to be $1.75 sign. So it's all relative, but there is some soft cost savings with reuse, renovation of existing square footage with the library site. And then we've shown the Salvation Army site and the Senior Center site.
Does the library just condense? It doesn't, it's not moved to a different location?
Nope.
It's just tightened up?
It's just
'Cause
tightened.
It's pretty
So
sprawling now.
Yeah, and so it kind of condenses down to 15,000 square feet,
Thank you.
which is a very typical size for a branch library. Yeah. And a lot of the spaces that go into the community center, the library can use shared use still, like meeting rooms, community hall, smaller group study rooms. And so there is a lot of synergy between libraries, community recreation centers.
A question about the specifics of the library. So when you talk about transitioning it from the current square footage to 15,000, you're not talking about taking it away, you're talking about repurposing a certain room for a specific community
Yes,
event
and
theme.
shared use.
Okay,
Like it
okay.
has a community hall, it has a story telling area now. They have group study rooms, and so those are the
Right.
type. And so in that workshop we had with library staff, we kind of went through the different models
Oh,
and how
okay.
they can work together. Yeah,
Okay, good, thank you.
What did they like?
I think they were very supportive of this site.
No, I meant, what did they like about condensing their building? Could they envision that?
Well, they like having access to the additional space and different kinds of spaces, right? So,
And I think also the opportunity for additional sort of activity around the library.
activation, yeah.
Having the library co-located with a community center just brings more opportunity for users to share the library resources. Maybe a parent goes over to the library to do work while their child is participating in a class or things like that. So it brings more activation to that site, and that they were, I think, very amenable to.
I think you're correct. That's right.
So we did do research on operational cost, and this is new information that we did not have last time we met with you. And so working with Desert Recreation District, trying to get our arms around not just the capital costs, but the operational costs for the city. And really great to have them provide specific information for facilities that they are operating. And so we have Thousand Palms, which is about 4,500 square feet. Palm Desert Community Center, 22,500 square feet, and Indio Community Center, which is 33,600 square feet. And you can see 2 of these 3 actually have a special assessment district where they get additional funds for operation. And we wanted to make sure we made that clear. And so we did provide the last line here, which is under notes, item B, where we took out that special assessment revenue, so you could actually kind of compare apples to apples. And the story here is the smaller the facility, the more expensive it is going to be to operate. The cost per square foot just rises significantly. For the Thousand Palms, it's $110 a square foot is what they're spending on that per year. Their special assessment is $438,000. As we look at Palm Desert, without any special assessment, the 22,000 square foot facility, their operational cost is $26 a square foot. So a big range here, and really not surprising when we look at Indio. Without the special assessment, it's again the largest one, it's $19 a square foot, so the cheapest to operate. We do, on the next slide, kind of summarize the staffing. and how they're operated, and the hours, which is also telling. Just the availability of the smaller center is only 22 hours a week compared to 80 hours for the two larger facilities. I'm just trying to highlight, there's a lot of information here, but really highlight what's, I think, really relevant here. And then the program volumes is really telling as well. When you have the smaller facility, they have 20 monthly programs. The larger facilities, Palm Desert has 60, Indio has 121, plus 65 gymnastics programs. They do have a special focus there for gymnastics. And you can see the community events, large-scale events, seasonal camps, additional services.
I think that median age tells us something too.
Yeah. And so going back to the slide that Kevin here helped us develop and looking at your financial capacity, and this is summarizing Measure W funding projections, looking at $1 million a year for the community center operations, $1 million a year for debt service. In the current bond market, it's projected that it'll generate capital of $13 million. And then just trying to translate this to cost per square footage for renovation and new construction. With just the $13 million, we are estimating new construction and renovation at the city-owned site would provide 10 to 14,000 square feet. And this is the numbers that we really want to dive in with your direction today and bring back to you in February so they can be refined. New construction alone with no existing facility to renovate would be 8,000 to 9,000 square feet. And if we add in the purchase of land, you can see it drops to 5,800 to 7,100 square feet. And renovation and land lease is 5,500 to 9,000 square feet. So those were some of the commercial properties. A lot of small information on this. And again, we showed this to you earlier, and it just really shows the value if you have an existing facility for renovation is about half that for as new construction. And so being able to reuse a facility, such as the library site, that's only about 20 years old, I think. It was Prop 13 library, I believe. You know, renovations can be about half the cost of new construction. And then when we're looking at land lease, adding in there, or purchasing, that's where the dollars really start to add up.
Mayor, I do have a question.
And again, we've got preliminary draft on here because it's really not site-specific yet.
All right.
Thank you. So I guess I lost something along the way here. You're not talking, or are you talking? I shouldn't start with a negative. Are you talking about the library being part of the community center, but there'd be an additional building as well, right? So we'd both be maintaining one building and
Adding to it.
building a separate facility.
So the
How do we do
library
that?
option, great question, and I did not go over that very slowly. So this first option here is you could actually do about a 12,000 square foot addition to get to a 17,000 square foot community center. This dashed white line is where the existing building ends, and we could have shaded this in a different color. So this is the square footage that would be renovated. And then we would do an addition to it for the rest of the community center square footage.
And the addition is outside the little dotted line, or is it
Yes,
all
so-
of the orange?
But we can, the whole orange is 17,000 square feet.
And part of it's library and part of it's.
5,000 is repurposed library, yes.
Thank you, I didn't get that originally, so
Sorry,
I appreciate that.
yes, I could have covered that better.
And on that same slide, when it talked, oh, there it is, it says existing parking spaces, and it's minus 95.
No, approximately 95.
Okay, but in the slide that you just went through, that's where ultimately a gym,
Yes,
And that's the dip area right at the corner where we do
So
the-
this is actually parking lot right now.
Okay.
So where we put the community center, the additional community center, recreation center space is actually the parking lot that you see
Okay.
right here as existing.
Okay, yeah, I see it. Thank you.
And that's why when we go to that full build-out, it's really important that we get those additional spaces.
Right. I
And it's not to say that we can't, as we develop this better, we can't refine this building outline to still provide a little bit more parking over here as well. This is just, we're working with bubbles at this level.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and it's not to say that even before we built that, if we had the need, that we could build additional parking and because plans, and readjust plans as we go.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Do you have more presentation?
No, I think that we are wrapping it up right there.
And I think if you, just real quickly, if you go back to the finance slide, the one that Kevin had provided. So I think what's important here to recognize is that additional resources are probably going to be needed to get us to any of these options. And so the 13 million really becomes the base. Kevin and I have talked and, sort of looking at just internally what resources we have, and we do have some impact fees that could probably go towards this, and we'd have to sort of line that out a little bit more of what could be allocated to this. We have potentially environmental funds that could be used depending on, what materials we used and how we did construction. And then additionally, we are going to need to probably look at other grant opportunities or earmarks or other partnerships that could potentially help with the capital costs. So again, depending on, I think any of the options, we're going to need some level of additional resources probably to get to ultimately where we want to be.
All right, so we're going to be asked to discuss a little more, and at the end, get down to a much smaller number of sites to move forward with. But if the council will indulge us, I think this is a good opportunity to allow public comments. If there's any members of the public that wish to comment on what they've seen.
Mayor, I did not receive any request to speak forms. If you're a member of the
Dawn?
public,
I'm sorry, Don, can you put up just the list that has the 9
Good
options?
idea, yes.
Just so for the discussion. Thank you.
if you're a member of the public and you wish to comment on item 2A, please come to the lectern. We have one.
Danny Lee, come forward.
I guess I don't have to give my name anymore. Evening, Mayor.
Well, you didn't turn in a slip either, but okay.
Hey, I have a hand. Anyway, exciting project. Of course, the city's been waiting a very long time for this. And a lot of difficult choices ahead, I think. In the foreseeable future, you'll only get one go at this. So you're not going to be able to do another Measure W in the next 15, 20 years, probably. So that is the base funds that we've got. Central location is going to be very important. So I would rule out downtown. I think it's got to be near residential areas. And most of our residences are around or above Ramon. So, you know, that makes the city library probably the best option, although I don't think it's a great option, frankly. It's easier to find smaller community spaces for meetings and so on in other locations. And so for that reason, I would say you start first with the gym recreation center and you go big, because we just saw there that your costs per square foot are going to be lower the bigger the facility is. I guess if we made it infinitely big, we'd not have to pay any cost. And we also didn't see there, but another option would be to go for a 30-year bond, not a 20-year bond. So we might be able to do better there. And of course, there are other sources, as we just heard, there are other sources for money to go towards this project. I think it would have been useful, and maybe they have the figure there somewhere, to see what it would actually cost, what the fully burdened cost would be for the two sizes that were being suggested, the recreation center and the community center. And we know that right now we might have 13 million towards it, but what is it we have to get to? That's the other question. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
And to the question, I think if we get some direction on a smaller list, that's our intention, is to
Yeah.
build out some of those direct costs for you.
We got it. So, and because I think that we understand that this is all still quite theoretical, but the problem we have now is we have 9 sites. So to say, well, what would it cost to build this size or that size? Well, it depends, because it depends on where we're at, but we do appreciate your comments. Are there any other public comments? All right, we'll close public comments and return it back to the council. Mayor Pro Tem, you told me you had some additional questions? Or
Yes, my first question will be for Kevin. Kevin, can you please come up and tell us if the $1 million that has been or will be set aside for Measure W, is that going to be, how much of that is going to be for park maintenance, and how much of that is going to be for future operations of the community center / recreation center? Or is that the entire amount to cover both?
Good question. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. With respect to the anticipated 5 million, you look at 5 pillars. And when you look at those 5 pillars, we have $1 million for fire, we have $1 million for roads. So when you take that out, we have $3 million left. And tied to that $3 million left, we have $1 million planned for parks. We have $1 million planned for the community center / recreation programs. And we have $1 million set aside or planned for that bond debt. That bond debt that we tie back to at $13 million, the bond council and the bond firm did the analysis of the 20-year and the 30-year. And the unfortunate thing was 30 years, we only garner about $2.5 million more of principal. So that 13 million only rises up to about 15.5. And so you're spending another 10 million in bond debt for those additional 10 years to only garner $2.5 million in principal. So based on the point about a 20-year versus a 30-year, when we presented this back in Measure W, we did tie back to that as a potential. But does that help answer?
Yes, it does, because it tells me the way I've grown up in my profession is I don't go shopping for a home until I know exactly how much money I make and what my expenses are and what my future income is. And that will tell me, and of course I get pre-qualified to make sure that I qualify, but it tells me how much am I going to be able to afford? How much can I do, can I buy? Then I don't look for any homes. When someone calls me that they want to buy a home, I don't show them any homes. First, I do my homework as to how much money do I have saved, et cetera, to come up with what is their potential financial strength. Well, I think that right here, what we're doing, I mean, they did an unbelievable job selecting the site, but I think we as council must come up with how much can we afford? How much is exactly what can we do? And then once we know what we can afford, we can start looking at sites, what's potential. We're doing this, I believe, backwards. We're going, for instance, I'll flip it over to cars. I'm shopping for Mercedes and Rolls Royces when all I can afford is a Yugo or Toyota. Okay, so we need to go backwards and say, okay, what can we do? For instance, if we do any of this, any new build, refurbished, or anything, with the money that we're gonna get from Measure W, is really peanuts, you can say, in the realm of things, okay? All we're gonna do is 5,000 square feet is absolutely nothing. A couple of bathrooms and it's really nothing. Now, if we get into the 25 to 40,000 square feet, it makes a difference. So by saying that is that if we build it, if the city builds it, okay, we have to pay prevailing wages, which is double, at least double the amount in expenses of what any regular property building is going to cost, whether it's remodeling, rebuilding, or refurbishing, or from the ground up. One of the best options that I was thinking is this: why can't we just come up and come into an agreement with an investor and have them build the property for us, and we'll lease it from them. They can build it specifically for what we want, for a certain payment a month per year for how many years, and do a lease option to buy. But by the end of the 20 years or 25 years, whatever it is, we can buy it for $1. In the meantime, they can build us something almost double the size for what we as a city, because we by law have to use prevailing wages, can afford to build. They can build something much bigger, almost double the size than what we can. So I think if we play our cards differently, we can do this. Also, with $1 million for debt service, $13 million total maximum for debt service, again, it comes down to very limited type of or size of a building. I think we as council might have to consider actually from the general fund, actually chipping in $500,000 to $1 million from the general fund to get a larger bond. That way we can double what we want to do.
And that would be an option.
Yeah, so
And so when you do the math, and I can share with you from when we first briefed you all on this concept of the debt service, we have had 3 rate cuts, as you all are aware, with respect to the Federal Reserve. And prior to the most recent rate cut in December, when we went back, that $13 million had inched up from the 2 previous rate cuts based on the bond market to about 13.5. So depending upon where life heads in the near term, the medium term, we could see even more gains with respect to what that principal would get. And you're spot on. If we did 1.5 or 2.0, we could end up with 19 to 20 million or 26 million plus.
And that will allow us to actually build something because, as is being said, we don't have that many chances, first of all, for another tax measure. We're done for 15 to 20 years. There's going to be almost impossible to get our voters to pass that again. But we as council, if we tighten our belts a little bit and make a decision to help out, whether it's $500,000 a year or $1 million a year from a general fund towards this purpose, it's something that will make a difference. And if we come up with a financing source and we determine how much can we afford, how much are we willing to really put out there, I think that will be beneficial. And then we can say, okay, we have $26 million, we decided to do this. Okay, building from the ground up, no. Okay, how about exploring other options? This just opens our eyes as to how much we cannot afford, actually. I mean, I would like to live in Indian Wells and other places, but actually, that's not what I can afford. So those are my
So Mayor
comments.
Pro Tem has asked questions. This is, all of our finance here is assuming that we take the money that's been set aside in Measure W, but probably with supplemental, but I'll just, what we're looking at and make a bond issue and come up with $13 million or so. Are there other finance options?
And let me feed off of the city manager had a little bit of an intro of that. And that is when, in the February meeting coming back, that's part of additional scouring to do. And she mentioned impact fees. She also mentioned potentially the AB 939, the environmental.
So those
fund.
are just supplementing it with other monies that we already have access to. Are there other finance options? Like you talked about, what sounded kind of like a design, build, lease back. Is that such a thing, or is that just a theoretical?
That is something that could be considered. We were tying back to additional funding sources on top of the 13 or 13 and a half.
I think all of us realize that we're going to have to look for other traditional funding sources to supplement whatever, but he was talking about something completely different. And I was wondering, is there such a thing? And if there is such a thing, have we explored such a thing?
We haven't explored specifically any of the financing options yet. I think what our hope has been is as we've narrow it down, that we can really dig deep into establishing what the funding plan would likely have to be before we could, move things forward. Because we do need to identify what those either additional partnerships, is it a private-public partnership? Are there other funding mechanisms that we're just not thinking about that we can kind of speak to consultants? I think like the Cosmots or others that might have some ideas. And, what are the other potential partnerships that we have with other community agencies that might either have opportunity for capital or for operational costs? All of those things have yet to be vetted. So we know they're out there, we just don't have that answer yet.
So it
fully.
would seem Mayor Pro Tem has a point, because I think his point is we're being led to a logical conclusion here that we have very few choices, only one that seems to pencil out partway because of cost. And so he's suggesting that, well, we don't know how much money we would have for this project because there are other financing options that haven't been explored. And I'm hearing, oh, well, yeah, we're aware there are other financing options that haven't been explored. So what he's saying is, well, we're doing this backwards then because we don't know if we have enough money to build something on a freshly purchased site that might be in an ideal location and solve other problems because we haven't looked at it. Is that correct?
Well, we don't have any current private partners that we have explored even trying to figure this option.
So is this something that's commonly done in cities, or is this something unusual?
I'm going to turn to Dawn to see if she has any suggestions since she's built more of
Because
these
this is the first
facilities
time
than I
hearing
have.
about it, and I am not an expert in this, so I'm just asking honest questions.
So I think what the study has identified is the need in the community, right, for community center and recreation facilities. There are options for lease buyback, and we can assist getting connections for additional information on that.
And does that change the overall financial picture significantly?
It can. My understanding, and we've talked with 2 or 3 cities recently about this, is the size of the project is what's going to determine that. So if we stay like on a first phase, 15 to 20, 20 to 25,000 square foot facility, it probably won't work. The lease buyback are typically for larger projects beyond that. And that is my recent discussion with people who are knowledgeable on that.
So, which is again interesting, because we had the last couple of sessions, nobody tells us for sure, but you present us a body of evidence that says you can only afford this much, you can only do this much. So what I'm hearing is, well, yeah, but if you were going to do a whole big one, then there might be a financing scenario where you could actually pay for that. But we haven't explored it because we've been only leading the council.
Well, it's not gonna be 50 cents on the dollar. I would say it's probably 85 or 90 cents on the dollar.
So that's why I'm asking, because it makes a significant difference, because we're looking at
my experience is not
significant cost
50 cents on the dollar, but there is potentially some savings, and it's 85 or 90 cents on the dollar.
And I think, Mayor, the focus of this study hasn't been to get into all of the financing plan for this. The intent of the study is to study potential locations that could be viable for the center
But again, without going around in circles over and over again, that's the Mayor Pro Tem's point, is we're looking at what's viable, and a lot of that viability is focused on cost. And he's suggesting that, and I'm hearing that it may be at least partly true, that some of the larger sites or some of the new builds might have other financing that might actually work. So, and this is the first I'm hearing of this in this in all of these studies we've been doing.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in here to say that I love your point. It's a great perspective in looking at it at a different, coming at it from a different angle. And the community priorities, and, you know, we get it from text messages and emails from community members, but they want court sports. So there, you know, one of my concerns about the library, and although I think it's a great idea to, you know, to refurbish it, part of it as a community rooms, because there's lots of space there that's available. But it's such a jammed little spot, and we're talking about repurposing and reconfiguring Patriot Park. There isn't any room for court sports. You know, I mean, that's not going to happen, and that's their big priority. And I know John Corella and I had talked about possibly repurposing the tennis courts on Candlewood, because they've been sitting there not used, and that didn't work out. And we thought maybe the city could work in a partnership with that to make a pickleball court, and, you know, just to find some space around here where we can do some things. And so the library center is never going to have that. I mean, this is what it's going to be, and we're always going to have to look for other opportunities for our community to use sports courts and have sports courts, because there's none here. So cross that out. That's what they wanted. That's not going to happen.
Councilmember, do you mean the indoor sports courts or outdoor sports courts?
Outdoor sports court. I cannot say. They just said sports courts here.
And that was beyond the scope of our study.
Okay, yeah,
Our study was mainly to look at the lack of the indoor
Right.
space.
Right. And so it's just as I'm thinking about all this, and we're considering this, looking at your point to, let's see what we want, not pie in the sky, but have a good idea of what our community needs are, and then go from that angle, you know, that approach, instead of this is what we've got, let's make it work.
Mayor, in the past, I have heard that a local builder, investor, was actually interested in potentially looking at the idea of building such a facility for the city, and the city leasing it from them. And they will do well financially, because they will make money, and we as the city and our residents will benefit quite a bit from that, because, like I said, when you have to build, paying prevailing wages is more than double the wages that you would pay anybody else. For instance, if a painter
I'm
does
not
that.
trying to cut you off, but we understand prevailing wages, so I'm
May I
just trying to
just
keep
ask
the
a
discussion.
question?
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
it has to do with this, but it's a little bit off kilter. I'm trying to wrap my brain, and I'm not a real spatial thinker. So what's the size of this room?
This is probably about
About 5,000?
about
3,000 square
3,000
feet?
square feet.
So I used to have a 34,000 square foot antique furniture warehouse, and you know, that would have been big enough to do something like this, but 20,000 probably wouldn't. You know, not to get what it is we want, what our constituents and our citizens want.
Right. Once you start adding bathrooms and you make them handicap accessible and all this, the space really becomes reduced quite a bit. So the library right now seems like the best option, but we need to maybe possibly come up with an ad hoc committee to actually explore this a little deeper or something, because I think
On a field trip.
if we do this, I think that we're doing this backwards, and we can potentially do better. And maybe exploring this a little bit deeper. We only have one good shot at this, and then later on, of course, adding on to it. But the initial construction or decision is going to be absolutely critical.
And Mayor Pro Tem, I think, and maybe I need to clarify, I don't think what staff is trying to do this evening is to advocate one way or the other. I think, you know, as Charlie had, I think, originally envisioned this, was the idea of a smaller center with an expansion opportunity. We didn't have the data that we have that Group 4 has done. And I think, as Dawn has said tonight, that, you know, it's we can look at the option of adding on later, but those costs are going to be just as probably worse, if we wait to do it and not build it out in the first place. I don't think we're here to try to advocate for one position or the other. I think we're trying to see if there's any consensus on a location, and then we can bring back options of sort of both footprints and have at least some better cost data of what that build out would be of a 22,000 square foot facility or a 40,000 square foot facility. And then we can, I think from tonight, I don't think the expectation is, okay, we're going to start into construction drawings tomorrow, but maybe we can then take some time and do further research on potential funding opportunities for either type of option. So whether it is if we really want to be more conservative and look at the smaller facility or the larger facility, I think the other thing we have to consider is how much can we afford to operate? And so those are the other cost challenges, I think, and why it's been helpful getting some of the initial data from the DRD to see what the true operational costs are for either size of these facilities. Because I think, while it's still not easy, I think it's easier to find ways to get the capital costs, whether through bonding, through grants, or other mechanisms. It's those ongoing operational costs, too, that we want to make sure we're balancing affordability.
I agree, because the larger the facility, the larger the operation. Even though we have $1 million for operations, that kind of tells us if you do that by the numbers, it's going to cost probably around $20-some per square foot.
And that funding is also what we've been using for our parks activities right now. Obviously, if we have an indoor center, there'll probably be a lot more park programming at the center, but that's the programmatic funding that's also been used for the park activities, too.
Mayor, it seems to me like we've gotten 4 off the list that we said as we went along, they were no's.
Well, we'll talk about that. I just wanted to add that I do appreciate the public comment that was made and the part of it where it was stated that we already have access to small meeting rooms here in the city, but when we want to have something larger or for indoor sports, other than, the school district has them and the Salvation Army may have them, but we don't have anything like that that's available. So it does seem kind of not the best use of first phase funds, if that's what we end up with, to say, well, it's easier for us to build smaller spaces with that, and then in the future we can look at building a big space, because it does kind of just omit, well, what are the people asking for? Well, yeah, they're asking for everything, but what are they mostly asking for, and what is the highest need? And it seems the highest need is to have spaces dissimilar to what we already have. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to just build spaces similar to ones we already have alternatives for, that we could probably use more, but to use all the money for that. Because at the end of that, everybody's going to say, well, we still can't do a lot of these functions because we don't have the places for those. So I just wanted to throw that in the mix. So, yeah, I was hoping you put a big snag in this, but it's a good snag.
It's a good snag.
Because I was thinking, well, let's be realistic. We want to move forward at some point. And so if we only have so much money and we only have so many possible sites that fall into that, then, we should be able to limit this down quite a bit and focus on, one. I thought we might come out of this focus on one primary site with maybe some backups, those types of things that we would continue to look at, but we wouldn't focus on. But now I'm hearing, well, but it depends, because it depends if we look at other financing options. And it depends on whether we, even if we did look at the one site or certain sites, that it might not be the suggested order of construction or the suggested order of use of space that we seem to be being shown that that's the way that would be easiest or most reasonable to do, but not really very aspirational to do, if that makes any sense. So, Councilmember Ross, you did suggest, I do think it's cumbersome to carry 9 sites forward.
Yep.
And we're not going to get a lot of progress on any one site by doing that. but you said that you felt that there were some that could pretty
Well, we
much just
kind
be
of agreed
crossed
on
off the
those
list. So
4.
would you like to go over those?
Yeah, it seemed to me, and correct me if this is mistaken, we found that Walmart and Burlington were difficult. They've always been difficult. That's probably not going to change. And then also the site near the amphitheater, because that was another potentially difficult. And then the 4th one was the Uptown Village site on Date Palm. Those 4 we didn't really talk about because they didn't really seem to stick with us.
So if I had to eliminate, given what the mayor pro tem said, I would say a site like the old Walmart and old Burlington might be possible under a different financing scenario where we had somebody else
possible.
build. So I would leave those on. I would take by the amphitheater off because it doesn't have even the amenities that those have. I would take Dennis Keat Soccer Park off. It was never, frankly, the best site in centrality because it really is kind of at a corner and edge of the city. And you would have to, basically whatever you built there, you would have to replace with like somewhere else. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. I would take Northgate Church off. It was an interesting discussion with them, but we would be leasing the land. My understanding is, although talks didn't get that far, that there might be strings involved, and I don't think that that's going to serve the city in the long run. And the Uptown Village, I don't even know how it got added on there. As far as I know, they're going to build shops there. So to me, it doesn't add any appeal to anything else. So you ended with the 3 others, other than Dennis Keat Park, 3 city-owned sites, or something aspirational if it was financed a different way, is kind of what I see.
Yes, Mayor, and also the Salvation Army property, it might be a little too small if we start getting a different type of financing if things change. Amenities are there, but...
It could be, but the city technically also owns property behind the Veterans Village right across the street
correct.
there. So when
south of
you're
that.
saying
That
you
could be
couldn't,
used for
you would
parking.
have to do a 2-story for parking there, I'm like, well,
That's true. That is
that's
true.
not really the discussion here tonight to get in that much detail, but would you have to? There's always other possibilities there, so.
Good point.
And also, we really haven't talked about the site across from City Hall here, but if it's on the table that there would potentially, we would look at something that we created, having that large space might be, it's on a bus route, it's
So
not
that
in a
doesn't,
neighborhood.
I
but
will
it's-
say that site does not appeal to me for a couple of reasons. It's not central to the city, and we have repeatedly discussed, and even the speaker discussed, that the center of the city is actually far north of the library, but it's certainly not in the cove. The other thing for that site is there are opportunity costs that you're going to be losing by going to that site, because we've always felt that the 111 frontage is ideal for commercial development
Sure,
or
we didn't have to
expansion
give
of the
that up.
Arts and Entertainment District.
We wouldn't have
And
to
if you built your community center there, you might have some spaces that could be used for that, but you're not going to generate revenue.
It's a very large site.
Yeah, so to me, that, while it's interesting to discuss that site, you couldn't have that discussion without having a serious lost opportunity cost discussion. So if we were looking at those other 2 sites, by the library, by the Salvation Army, or something using the old Walmart, old Burlington with a different financing structure, or technically different financing structure anywhere, would be my preference to move forward on.
Yeah, and I agree with the library and the
agree.
Salvation Army and the Walmart and the Burlington. Because the parking is wonderful, the access, it's not a cramped spot. Just to be able to expand and do something long-term. I think,
Well, I know I
would
had.
not want to see
I
those.
don't want to, yes, I agree with you on that. And I had talked to the city manager, and I had mentioned, the old Marmark site, if you got into negotiations, who knows? But it's a large space and a large parking lot and those kind of things. There was talks about not having to use all of that parking lot even for a recreation center. And could that be used to attract multifamily housing, maybe some affordable housing? those types of things. So while it seems like, oh, that's a great big space and we couldn't possibly use it, I think if we looked at the whole picture, any of those sites in the old Burlington might very well be the same. You know, there might be opportunities to do the recreation center and something else on that
My
site.
understanding is those two sites have been difficult to negotiate with, and maybe we'd want to send somebody
It could be,
different.
but we're ignoring that because we don't really know. I mean, it's an educated guess because they've looked at
Well, and the
others,
reason I
what
said
others
that
have
is
done
it
with
might
them.
be our opportunity to go to the outside to have somebody negotiate that instead of, us
That-
internally, because
That's a
they've.
possibility, right? So, does that sound like a good way to move forward at this point?
I think that you couldn't put that any better, Mayor.
Yeah, I think it's good.
So for clarification, Mayor, the 4 that we will continue to work on is the library site, Salvation Army, Old Burlington, and Old Walmart. Was the senior center site still on the list for the council or no?
Not for me.
No, not for me.
Okay.
That will help limit and help you move forward. But we'd also, where we're adding is we want you to look at other types of financing, design build, those types of things, those type of opportunities. And we'd also, I think we'd like you to, for those, the Walmart and the Burlington site, somebody actually have a discussion with them or what our options would be. I don't know if this is the kind of thing where the city would try to force a sale or any of that type of thing. But I think we should probably at least have that on the table
Correct.
because they're not utilized spaces right now, so they're not doing the city or its residents or its visitors or anybody any good.
I mean, it was, I think, a little clearer, at least on the Walmart project, that there was a commercial operator with, a variety of options for that, and they weren't able to come to a negotiated agreement to kind of move forward with it. But we'll explore different options on how we would have that conversation if we need to go through a broker or somebody else.
All right, is that at least gets us off of 9 sites? So that's a good thing, right?
And then also
sorry, you
clarifying,
came
council,
tonight.
that you're wanting to look at sort of, as we look at sort of higher costs for both smaller footprint and larger footprint for,
I think that's correct, but I am hearing, well, at least I have a preference that we
look at the
we look at
gymnasium size.
maybe some of the priority sites, program elements here, even if they,
No,
if they,
We can-
if you could only
gymnasium
do some
and
of
the
them
community hall
first
space.
and kind of look, as has been suggested by the speaker, of
Shuffle
not
them.
prioritizing are already kind of exist somewhere else around the city, even though we obviously could use more.
But a pre-built building would be pretty awesome too, so, however.
And we can look at, as Don has presented, the different building programs and the kind of square foot set aside for those. We can look at sort of, if we want to focus on sort of that gymnasium piece or that recreational piece, how we could sort of shuffle those to see how we could maximize that larger space. If we're doing the one larger with the recreation component versus the community component first.
All right, thank you.
Yes, and Mayor, as we continue to explore this, if council will actually keep in mind that, or keep an open mind, that once we get all the finances in order to see more of the possibilities as to how finances are going to work, keep in mind that keep an open mind that if necessary for us to actually assist in that development from general funds, obligated.
Yeah, that would all be part of the discussion. I don't think we were going to focus on that tonight. I think it's worthwhile, as you said, to discuss. There's all kinds. When you said one of the, for example, when Don, when you said that one of them was a resiliency center, that type of thing, I'm thinking, oh, well, I've heard of some very large grants
Right.
that have gone for spaces that could also be used resiliency centers, and they tend to be the larger rec spaces, maybe with a kitchen and that kind of thing.
Or if it was an alternate EOC location and you needed to build it to
So
a
there are all
certain
kinds of
standard and
funding
things like that.
possibilities, so,
Well,
yes.
can we
we'll
get some of
continue to
those
look at
back at us too? Some of those suggestions?
Well, I think that should be part of the discussion. If we build, say we do build a large space earlier than later, what are we more likely to get some of these certain types of grants for that? I think that's worthwhile.
Yeah, Mayor, because I'd rather do this right than do it fast.
No, you're right. You're correct. And I would
And I
appreciate
haven't
that.
ever been in the Burlington, but, we did Hall of Flowers at the other one, it was the Burlington, at the Burlington. And it was great. It was a great, huge, big space, and it looked like it was fairly well cared for.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on. We do have other items on our study session. Thank you very much for your presentation and city management for your assistance and finance and everyone. I think it was a good discussion.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, our next item is the new city website reveal. City manager, would you like to introduce the?
Yes, this is another exciting one, and we didn't kick Ryan till the end of the meeting this time. Staff have been working on for a long time, updating our city website, which hadn't been really fully rebuilt since we put it into place too many years ago. And so Ryan and Matthew Levy from our IT department have been the leads on bringing our website into the current generation. And so or the current century. So I'd like to turn it over to Ryan and Matthew to kind of walk you through what has happened to it. And I think it's really exciting, and staff are really pleased with the outcome of this.
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, it's good to be with you this afternoon to go over our new website reveal. I want to put a few caveats. We still have another round of user acceptance training, so this is a bit of a trial period as we kind of collect data and feedback. So I'm obviously interested in any feedback that you have as a council, but we are still tinkering. So if you see some things that are kind of still changing, we are still actively working. And as I'll get into in a later slide, websites are living documents, and they're always updated. There's never a day where you get to spike the football and say it's touchdown and you're done. It's always kind of trying to evolve and make sure we stay ahead and get the most accurate information. So strategic plan goal, just wanted to mention that it's goal D4, leverage technology to increase and improve online services. I think we did that with our InterGov conversion and the online services portal that we've done. And this is kind of, again, another way that we're doing, that we're trying to manage our operational data and improve our overall access to public information, which is important. So I think the interim city manager queued it up nicely about why update now. Well, we hadn't had a redesign since 2016. That was nearly a decade, and it's our first major content overhaul since 2008. So it's my understanding, this predates me, but in 2016 it was really more of just moving all of the content over from the 2008 iteration and giving it a facelift or a new look. This is not what we did this time. We had it was a major undertaking, and is still one that we're doing actively with our departments. You don't clean up that much over that much time, dated information, a lot of cluttered activity overnight. It's a really lengthy, heavy lift process. So I'll get into the team and give some kudos in a minute, but the job is still very much underway, and one that we're taking very seriously. The previous site had accumulated outdated content, broken links, inconsistent formatting, and you can just see the overall look. It doesn't adhere to our branding and style guidelines at all. And so it was just kind of a lot of different colors, a lot going on. Didn't really look modern from a functionality standpoint. So, it needed a modern platform that reflects how our residents, see Cathedral City today, which is what we wanted to provide. So Ann Ambrose, our interim city manager, I want to thank her for her leadership support on this. I was the project lead, but it was certainly a small but mighty effort with our team of Matthew Levy, as she mentioned, did really terrific work, as he continues to do when it comes to helping to clean up a lot of broken links and going back on the back end of the site and trying to consolidate and reduce the number of clicks. When we were doing heat mapping on the old site, you could just see how many times people would use their mouse and just give up because they couldn't find anything, and they couldn't get to it quick enough. And so that was something that we took seriously. We really were intentional about data-informed decision-making. So what you see on the homepage is really based on what are people clicking on, what are people really using, and what could we have a little bit more front and center to make it a little bit easier for them as well. Victor Gomez, who's obviously in economic development and city manager's office, want to give him kudos as well. He helped us immensely with content review, with updates to the service finder, and helping me with the style guide that we've now implemented. We've never had a style guide that has been universal to my knowledge in the city. So that's another kind of growing up as a city kind of thing to get us in line with where we should be in 2026. And department liaisons, we're going to have a process now where two individuals and employees in each department will be doing quarterly check-ins and updates. They'll be responsible for upkeep in their departments. With the limited resources we do have as a staff, we're a small but mighty team that we really need to make sure that we have people trained in all departments to be able to make updates to the content. Whereas, the now eliminated position of webmaster graphic design was kind of a one-person operation, and that wasn't really sustainable. We weren't really keeping up with where we needed to be. So what we did, again, comprehensive content audit across all departments, archived obsolete materials, forms that had the old city logo, things that weren't fillable, a lot of ADA access issues that we had to clean up, some new regulations that have actually come in from the state now that we needed to make sure we adhere to. So I'm really happy with how we've consolidated a lot of the content and eliminated duplicate unnecessary links. When I was looking at the website, Cone Zone, anything Cone Zone for our traffic alerts that could be applicable, it was just added there. And so what that does is it just creates so many buried links when you're looking for search function in Google. So we really wanted to make sure, like I said, that the reducing the number of clicks was a prime goal here. Restructure the site architecture around user needs. And as you can just see the homepage, kind of that cream color, the orange, it is more identifiable to Cathedral City's brand. And you can see it now on the video monitors view and the council chamber upgrades. But we're really trying to make sure that we adhere to brand style guidelines as well. So actually, I'm going to leave it on that slide, and I'm going to bring up Matthew Levy, who's going to get a little bit more into the tech side of things. So and just kind of talk a little bit about what we've achieved.
Thank you, Ryan. Hello, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. My name is Matthew. I think we've met a couple times. Okay, so we wanted to make this under one roof. We're running too many websites around the city. It just becomes, when we have new employees, the first thing they say to us is, well, we didn't know if that was your site. Oh, we didn't know this. And so we really wanted to make sure that this is all into one municipal site, very much like other cities do. So we consolidated police, fire, and HR all under the cathedralcity.gov hood. That takes a lot of work internally to work with our police department, work with our fire department, make sure that we hit all the, cross all the T's, dot all the I's. And what we did is we took it all into basically a folder, if you look at there. But we were hosting these on separate external sites, which creates more spend on the IT side. It's now easier for our residents to find all the city information in one place, which we really wanted to do. You could also see these mobile buttons that are built into all the pages. These little rectangle boxes kind of morph when you're on a smaller screen, so it's much easier to see the data in front of you. And the maintenance for staff, before, like Ryan was saying, we had one webmaster, we had to wait sometimes 3 days for an update. We now have over 20 different staff members probably that can edit this site on a whim. So, and that's what we need if we want a nice little website to run for our future developers. But this is basically our storefront. We need to make sure that we take care of it and sweep the rugs every day. Another key feature we added on this site is what we call the service finder. We also like to take a couple off of our mission statement of moving forward. So kind of just getting stuff done really quickly for our citizens and residents alike. But it functions like a mini app. Once you click it, you get access to a whole drop-down list of things that people can do really quickly. And we link that through sub-menus to get to where you need to be. So we don't want clicking through pages. These are actionable. So once you do find what you want, usually it's a one click away. So before we had daisy chain page to page to page to page to page, removed all of that, relinked everything, and made it click and open. The report an issue, find a permit, locate city services, all in here. So really quickly. Some of the additional improvements we also added were, just like Ryan was already saying, a modern user-friendly interface. Again, it was almost, when we looked at the old site, it enraged us a little bit because, you know, it was just not professional looking. And we all feel like we're very professional, and we really wanted to make this one look and feel like Cathedral City, like all of us bleed it. We really wanted it to be that good. So all the colors were deduced. We threw around color schemes on color palettes, took in what we call ADA standards and guidelines and WCAG or online compliance based features to make sure that our color schemes were going to be perfectly viewable with blacks, our creams, and our browns. So the mobile design will alter to any device, whether it be an iPad, whether you go landscape, whether you go portrait. It doesn't really matter what you do, you're gonna be snapped onto the grid. Our searching functionality, although right now may not be great, because once you remove the top of your house and all the plumbing's left, Google has a really hard time connecting those pipes back. So we're gonna get it all back in there, and it's gonna be really, really nice. It just takes a little more time for Google to know what we did. And about 3 weeks from now, we won't be talking about this. So, but again, our updated visual design reflecting our city brand was paramount in this project. Ryan did a fantastic job really pushing home exactly what we needed to do to stand out.
Is it cathedralcity.gov or?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Mayor Pro Tem.
Cathedralcity.gov.
Cathedralcity.gov, correct. I know we have a lot of websites, so it's hard. We're going to be rerouting all of our other sites that are all pointing to this one main site as well.
That's nice.
Again, the Google search note, we just want to make it very, very transparent here. The site has been completely restructured, so there will be some broken links. Please bear with us in this intermediary time here.
Do you want us to tell you if we see a broken link? You want us to shoot you an email?
Sure. We're also grooming internally as well, Councilmember Rossi.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember, to answer your question, yeah, we're likely to see broken links in the 2 to 3 week period. Yeah, so during that, as it kind of relearns how to crawl the site, we were happy to hear that Granite has actually duplicated our efforts there and sent a sitemap as well, which will hopefully escalate. Google's not always my favorite as far as escalating and being prompt, but we are noticing through real-time searches, as you know, Matthew and I just pick a handful of items each day to kind of search meetings and agendas, things that are obviously going to be searched in that. But I think, you know, to clarify, it is a search powered by Google. So what you see in Google is going to be mimicked on our cathedralcity.gov. So we don't have an internal, search function. It's powered by Google results. So it'll take a little bit of time. We really, I think it was kind of murky as far as the divide between discovercathedralcity.com and cathedralcity.gov. Discovercathedralcity.com, through the advice of our city attorney, is where the marketing news site really needs to be a .com separated site when we're promoting small businesses and doing any type of advocacy for the city. So that as a news site is now pretty clear. So when you see this on the news and calendar tabs, you can see that we're keeping some articles there. We're going to try to mix it up with Evergreen and some new stuff as well on the 4 boxes that we have. But when you click now, it's just going to all go directly to the full article on discovercathedralcity.com. So no more of this, like I have to click 3 different ways to get to news, or the news looks empty and kind of sad. It's all now going to be powered by Discover Cathedral City, and that was something that drove me a little nutty when I first got here, that we just didn't really have this way to get people straight to the news, and it was confusing. Why don't you have this on cathedralcity.gov? Well, that's actually a really good question. So we have to make sure that we're kind of mimicking a news site here, but it will ultimately get you to the discovercathedralcity.com. So next steps, continue to hear user feedback, and certainly have some residents that have been called upon to kind of look at the site as well. And I know we've received certainly plenty of feedback from Mr. Lee, and so we're working on that. We really appreciate that, though, Danny. I think that's going to make for a better site, and hearing from our residents. And we thought, keeping him out of retirement for too long, we had to give him something to do. So Charlie McClendon is actually looking at the website as well and has provided some feedback. So again, living document, certainly still more work to do. I think there will always be work to do on the website, and it's something that just for the longest time it becomes something, I think from an internal morale standpoint, it had hurt our employees too, because when you see that old site every day you come into work, you have to update it, you have to look at it, and as our residents, we want to make sure it's something that they feel proud of, that reflects the Cathedral City brand. So while we're still tinkering and getting rid of dated content, why not make it look like a 2026 website and bring us into the future and to the current, and so that's what we've tried to do. So we will be doing deep dive training sessions first week of February. And again, it's a continuous improvement living document. There's no staff recommendations just presented for information, but I will be happy to answer any questions.
All right, council questions.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, in the past, if people needed to access the police department, they used to go to cathedralcitypolicedepartment.gov or whatever it was, and they would do whatever business they needed to do at that website. And also, of course, our regular Cathedral City website. Now, how about Discover Cathedral City? Do we have a link there to, I know there's legally, I don't know if it's true or not, or it was just something I misunderstood, that you can now put anything regarding Cathedral City, Discover Cathedral City on our regular website, no links or anything.
It's best practice when you're doing tourism-based initiatives and marketing of that style that you do a .com versus a .gov website. And so we created essentially a Visit Cathedral City, almost tourism type site with .com. But there are still plenty of ways that you can access that on the homepage and then through the news content. Now it all just directly hyperlinks to Discover that anything that's a news content item.
So the police website is.
Police website's all under
all
our roof
integrated.
now. Yeah, it'll all be.
Fire
it's-
is integrated.
Fire is
So we
integrated
just
and,
have one.
yeah, just have
We
one.
also used to have an app for the police department here, in which we have the Go Request, but we also had the police one here.
Yeah, so the police site and the fire site are currently still active while the site crawl is underway for another couple of weeks. But eventually, when you do search that, or if you click on a link, it will now redirect all to cathedralcity.gov.
Great,
And
great.
the economic development ones and. all
Correct.
Those are all going to be.
Absolutely. The development dashboard, all of it's under one house. Yep.
Good to hear.
Does that also include like code enforcement?
Yeah, they've always been a part of the .gov tree. Yeah, absolutely. All of our departments are under the cathedral.
You can still make notes to them, that you saw something, I mean, because that's one of the things they did. Not code enforcement, but, like city, when you're driving through the city and, what? Thank you,
Oh, yeah,
report
yeah.
an issue, that's really what I meant.
Yes, yeah. So that service finder tool hopefully makes reporting an issue easier, but it all is housed now on cathedralcity.gov, all under that one site. Yes.
And thank you.
All right, Councilmember Gordon. She actually pushed the button.
Thank you. I just want to, I've told you, Ryan, already, but having presided over numerous website redesigns of similar magnitude in my career, I know what a huge task this was, and I want to commend you and the tech team and everybody for doing the audit, for doing the due diligence, and putting this together in such a way that is really user-friendly. And even though there's, ongoing hiccups, as Matthew said, in 3 weeks there won't be. And so this is really, I think, transformative for the way that we communicate information to our residents. And so I just want to congratulate you on that, because I know that this was a significant lift, and it looks very smooth and it looks very polished, and the branding is fantastic.
Thank you, Councilmember. With your expertise too and your background, it really means a lot. I appreciate that. I share that in Ann's leadership, Matthew's work, and Victor's work on the project. It was certainly a team effort. Appreciate that.
Good job.
All right, thank you. Are there any public comments on this item?
Mayor did not receive any request to speak forms. If you remember and you'd like to make a public comment, we do have one.
Annie Lee, come forward.
So I was reviewing your bios the other day, and I'm going to set you some homework to go read it. Because I think some of you no longer own restaurants, for example. So you might just want to make sure that now we've got this beautiful new website, the information is actually accurate.
Thank you so much. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Back to the council. Anything else? All right. That's the end of this item. City Manager, if you don't mind, and John Corella, if you don't mind, we would like to move item number C of the study session to the end of our regular meeting so we can have a few minutes to do a closed session.
Absolutely.
All right, so with that, I'll ask the city attorney if he would read us in a closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. We have two items on your closed session this evening. The first is a public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, with the position being city manager. The second item is a conference with your labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Your labor negotiators are Al Ford, he's the Assistant City Attorney in my office, and Aswinya Soren, Human Resources Manager. The employee organizations are American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees and the Cathedral City Firefighters Association.
All right, are there any public comments on closed session? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and recess into closed session.
I had a friend, Ernesto. Ernesto. I had a friend who just told me that they were having tortillas yesterday, and
Wonderful.